Breaking overnight, a fortified missile base in eastern Belarus was rendered inoperable, raising new questions about modern air defense systems.
January 5th, 2026, 3:17 a.m. Krytvev, 6 Air Base, eastern Belarus. A hypersonic weapons complex erupts into a towering column of flame, bright enough to turn night into daylight for miles. Secondary explosions ripple outward, violent enough to trigger seismic sensors well beyond the country's borders. This was not a missile intercepted in flight. Ukraine did something far more destabilizing. An entire stockpile of Russia's most protected hypersonic weapons was ignited on the ground before Moscow even realized an attack was unfolding. The target was the Oreshnik system, a Mach 10 solid-fuel missile platform Russia had branded untouchable once operational. Each launcher carried multiple independently targetable warheads, enough destructive capacity to threaten several European capitals in a single launch cycle. 10 of those launchers were positioned here, together, behind what Russian planners believed was an impenetrable defensive shield. Krytvev 6 was not an ordinary air base. It had been rebuilt into a hardened fortress, wrapped in layered air defense. S-400 batteries guarded the outer perimeter, reinforced by short-range interceptors and dense electronic surveillance. On paper, no aircraft, no missile, and no drone should have been able to approach without being detected and destroyed. Yet this entire complex was eliminated without a single Ukrainian jet crossing the border. There was no mass air raid, no conventional strike package. Just 2 F-16 aircraft operating at distance, and a small group of low-cost drones exploiting timing, physics, and human expectation. What failed here was not technology alone, it was confidence. Russia bet that speed, scale, and reputation made these weapons safe. Ukraine bet that patience and sequencing mattered more than brute force. This strike did not challenge hypersonic missiles in the air. It challenged the assumption that they would ever get there. So the question is simple. When the most advanced missile system in the world is dismantled without firing a single shot, does the shield still matter, or has modern warfare already moved beyond it? If this opening made you curious, stay with me and tap subscribe. Because the way this operation unfolded reveals more about the future of war than any missile brochure ever could. By late December 2025, while global attention drifted toward holiday headlines and year-end politics, satellite analysts were watching something far more consequential unfold in eastern Belarus. High-resolution imagery showed repeated heavy vehicle movements into Krytvev 6, a Cold War-era airbase located roughly 250 miles north of the Ukrainian border. This was not rotation traffic. The patterns were deliberate, slow, and tightly controlled. Signals intelligence quickly confirmed what imagery suggested. Russia was not staging drills or dispersing assets. It was concentrating them. 10 mobile Oreshnik launchers were moved into hardened bunkers, fueled, armed, and parked together for the first time outside Russian territory. From a deterrence standpoint, it was a message. From an operational standpoint, it was a vulnerability. The Oreshnik system itself had become a symbol of Kremlin messaging. Designed as a solid-fuel hypersonic missile with re-entry speeds approaching Mach 10, it carried multiple independently targetable warheads intended to overwhelm any known missile defense architecture. Russian officials described it as unstoppable once launched, and Western analysts largely agreed on one point: intercepting it in flight would be extraordinarily difficult. That assumption shaped everything that followed. Russian planners invested heavily in protecting the launch phase, not the storage phase. Krytvev 6 was wrapped in a layered defensive umbrella built to repel aircraft and high-altitude threats. 3 S-400 battalions provided long-range coverage, backed by mid- and short-range systems designed to catch anything that slipped through. From above, it looked airtight. From below, it was rigid. Ukrainian intelligence understood this layout in detail. Months of surveillance mapped radar arcs, reload cycles, crew rotations, and power dependencies. Analysts noticed that while the air defense systems were formidable, they were optimized for altitude and speed, not persistence at extremely low levels. The defensive grid assumed the threat would announce itself. That assumption extended to human behavior. Russian crews were trained to react aggressively to anything resembling a high-altitude strike package. Decoys, large radar signatures, and conventional attack profiles were exactly what these systems were built to counter. What they were not designed for was restraint under ambiguity. Ukrainian planners structured the operation around that predictability. The goal was not to defeat the air defense network outright, but to occupy it, to force it into spending its most expensive interceptors on targets that did not matter, while the real threat moved quietly beneath the radar horizon. Timing was everything. The decision was made to wait until every launcher was fully fueled and stationary. Fueling hypersonic missiles is not a reversible process. Once loaded, the systems become both more dangerous and less mobile. That window, while brief, was decisive. Weather data also played a role. Low cloud cover and winter temperature inversions reduced radar efficiency near the ground, further compressing detection envelopes. Combined with terrain masking from forests and subtle curvature effects at very low altitude, it created a corridor that only unmanned systems could realistically exploit. 2 F-16 aircraft were assigned to the mission, but not as attackers in the traditional sense. They would remain inside Ukrainian airspace, acting as electronic warfare and standoff platforms. The real penetration would be handled by inexpensive one-way drones flying profiles no manned aircraft would survive. Every element of the plan relied on discipline. No early strikes, no reactive adjustments, no deviation once the sequence began. The Ukrainian command issued a single execute order only after confirming that all 10 launchers were fueled, sheltered, and immobile. From the Russian perspective, everything still looked normal. The defenses were active, the perimeter was quiet, the systems were ready. There was no reason to believe that the most heavily defended missile complex in the region was about to become the center of the largest single loss of strategic weapons in the war. And that is often how failure begins. Not with chaos, but with confidence. Before we move on, if you have ever trusted a system simply because it looks strong on paper, you might want to keep watching. Hit like and subscribe, because the next phase shows exactly how that confidence was exploited. January 4th, 2026, 10 p.m. A secluded tarmac near Chernihiv. The night is silent until 6 small gasoline engines come alive, their low mechanical hum barely rising above the winter wind. These are long-range, one-way attack drones, inexpensive, unmanned, and designed to fly where radar does not like to look. They lift off and immediately descend. Instead of climbing for efficiency, their flight computers drive them down to roughly 140 feet above the ground, skimming tree lines and frozen fields. At that altitude, curvature and terrain do the hiding for them, keeping the drones below the effective search envelope of long-range Russian radar. For the next several hours, the drones navigate without radio chatter. Inertial guidance and hardened satellite updates correct their course constantly, small adjustments made thousands of times per second. They are not racing the clock, they are waiting for it. While the drones move north, a different piece of the operation comes online far behind them, inside Ukrainian airspace. An F-16 Block 72 circles calmly, its pilot watching systems rather than skies. This aircraft is not here to fight. It is here to provoke. At 2 for TFM AM, the pilot releases 2 air-launched decoys designed to look anything but small. These programmable systems broadcast radar signatures that mimic a large, high-altitude strike formation, the kind Russian crews have been trained for since the Cold War. On Russian radar screens at Krytvev 6, the picture changes instantly. What appears is not 2 decoys. It looks like a full-scale Western-style air assault, climbing fast and moving with intent. Alarms sound. Crews rush to consoles. The base wakes up believing the threat they have prepared for has finally arrived. The response is immediate and expensive. Target locks are established at altitude, exactly where Russian doctrine expects danger to appear. Within moments, multiple S-400 interceptors launch, each missile costing millions, racing upward toward targets that are not real. From the Russian perspective, everything is working. Missiles guide, tracks disappear, the high-altitude threat appears neutralized. What they do not see is what never triggered their sensors in the first place. below them. Still hugging the terrain, the drones pass unnoticed through radar gaps that now matter more than ever. The S-400 system has done its job, but in doing so, it has committed itself. Its launch tubes are empty, and its reload cycle will take time measured in tens of minutes. As the long-range defenses reset, the second layer is about to be tested. Approaching the inner perimeter of Krytvev 6, the first wave of drones changes behavior. Instead of hiding, they climb. Their altitude jumps to roughly 300 feet, enough to light up short-range sensors and draw attention. This is intentional. Russian point defense systems react exactly as designed. Pantsir and Tor units swing into action, tracking and engaging the suddenly visible targets. Cannons open fire. Short-range missiles launch in quick succession. The sky above the base fills with tracers and exhaust plumes. To the crews on the ground, this feels like success. Targets are being destroyed. Radar returns vanish. The system is holding. But saturation has a cost. Each Pantsir unit can only track and engage a limited number of targets at once. By presenting multiple drones simultaneously, Ukraine forces every sensor and every operator to focus on cheap, expendable threats. Processing capacity is consumed. Reload cycles begin. Attention narrows. And while the defenders celebrate what they think is containment, they are missing what matters most. 60 miles away, still silent, a second F-16 waits for its moment. Unlike the first aircraft, this one has not transmitted, jammed, or revealed itself in any way. It has been watching the timing window close from the other side. As the inner defenses become fully occupied and the outer layer sits temporarily empty, the pilot receives confirmation. The airspace over Krytvev 6 is not clear, but it is distracted. That is enough. Weapon safeties come off. Under the wings are standoff cruise missiles designed not for speed, but for invisibility. Their release does not look dramatic. They simply drop, unfold, and disappear into the dark, flying even lower than the drones that came before them. On the ground, Russian crews are still engaged, still firing, still convinced they are winning the exchange. They do not yet realize that the first act of the operation was never meant to destroy anything at all. It was meant to make them look the wrong way. Quick check before we go further. If you are still watching this unfold, let me know where you are watching from. Drop your country in the comments and stay with me, because the next phase is where everything breaks at once. January 5th, 2026, 3:05 a.m. Airspace south of Krytvev 6. The cruise missiles released moments earlier are now fully autonomous, flying profiles no radar operator expects to see during an active engagement. They hug the terrain at roughly 50 feet, using preloaded digital maps and inertial navigation to follow the contours of forest lines, access roads, and drainage cuts around the base. These are not weapons designed to announce themselves. Each missile carries a low observable airframe and an imaging infrared seeker, trained not to look for radar emissions, but for shapes and heat patterns. Even if every jammer in the region were activated, these systems would continue unaffected, comparing what they see to what they already know. At Krytvev 6, Russian crews are running out of margin. The S-400 batteries are in reload mode. Pantsir units are cycling ammunition and missile canisters. Communication channels are saturated with overlapping reports of drone kills and system status checks. No one is looking outward anymore. Everyone is looking inward. This is the moment the operation was built around. The first cruise missile reaches the outer hardened bunker and does not detonate on contact. Instead, it penetrates. A delayed fuse calculates deceleration as the reinforced nose punches through layers of concrete and earth. Only after reaching the interior space does it trigger exactly where the missile motor storage sits. The blast itself is powerful, but it is not the main event. What follows is solid fuel hypersonic missiles are not designed to burn slowly or safely. Once ignited, their propellant becomes a self-sustaining reaction, producing extreme heat and pressure in a confined space. Within seconds, the bunker turns into a pressurized furnace. Steel doors weighing several tons are blown off their mounts. Roof sections fail. A column of incandescent flame erupts upward, visible for miles, lighting the low clouds from below. Seismic sensors register the shock as the second and third bunkers begin to follow. Inside the base, confusion turns into urgency. Orders are issued to evacuate remaining launchers. Fuel lines are disconnected hastily. Engines roar to life as crews attempt to move what can still move. But mobility under fire is not mobility at all. As 2 launch vehicles emerge from a surviving shelter, another layer of the plan closes in. 4 additional drones, held back until now, have been loitering above the area, riding the thermal updrafts created by the fires. Their operators have a clear view through low-light cameras. Target acquisition takes seconds. The drones dive, not at the armored cabs, but at the exposed missile canisters. Shaped charge warheads detonate on contact, triggering secondary explosions powerful enough to overturn vehicles weighing tens of tons. Fuel trucks and support vehicles are hit next, eliminating any chance of containment or recovery. Each strike compounds the damage already unfolding inside the base. From a distance, the scene looks less like a battle and more like a controlled demolition gone catastrophically wrong. Multiple launch sites burn simultaneously. Ammunition cooks off. Fire spreads faster than crews can react. Back in the Ukrainian command center, there is no celebration. Operators monitor data streams instead of video feeds. Seismic readings spike. Infrared signatures collapse. Structural integrity assessments cross thresholds one after another. The conclusion is unambiguous. Krytvev 6 is no longer a functional military installation. The 2 F-16 aircraft bank away, their role complete. They never entered contested airspace. They never faced direct fire. Behind them, the horizon glows orange, a visible marker of strategic loss. This was not a battle decided by speed or firepower alone. It was decided by cost imbalance and sequencing. In the span of minutes, systems worth billions were neutralized by platforms costing a fraction of that amount, using patience instead of force. And that imbalance is what makes this moment dangerous beyond the battlefield. It signals a shift. Defensive systems built to stop fast. Expensive threats are increasingly vulnerable to slow, cheap ones when timing is exploited. If this breakdown helped you see how modern operations actually unfold, hit like and subscribe. Not because of the explosions, but because understanding how these systems fail is now as important as knowing how they are built. By dawn on January 5th, 2026, the fires at Krytvev 6 had burned themselves down to smoke and twisted metal. Satellite imagery taken hours later showed multiple collapsed bunkers, overturned launch vehicles, and scorched ground where a strategic missile complex once stood. All 10 Oreshnik launchers were confirmed destroyed or rendered inoperable in a single night. From a material standpoint, the loss was staggering. Each launcher represented years of specialized manufacturing, rare components, and tightly controlled supply chains already under international sanctions. Replacing them was not a matter of pulling equipment from storage. It meant restarting production lines that no longer had easy access to critical parts. In practical terms, an entire year of Russia's hypersonic missile output vanished before a single weapon could be launched. Politically, the impact spread quickly. Moscow issued formal protests and described the strike as unacceptable, while offering no public explanation for how such a heavily defended site had been compromised. European capitals quietly reassessed the immediate threat picture, recognizing that a system once viewed as unstoppable had been neutralized without interception. For Ukraine, the message was carefully calibrated. There were no victory parades and no dramatic announcements. Officials emphasized restraint, framing the operation as a defensive necessity rather than a symbolic triumph. The real audience was not the public. It was every military planner still relying on legacy assumptions about deterrence and protection. The deeper lesson is uncomfortable. Hypersonic speed did not matter. Layered defenses did not matter. What mattered was exposure. A weapon designed to be terrifying in flight proved vulnerable while sitting still, dependent on human decisions and procedural timing. This operation did not prove that hypersonic missiles are useless. It proved something more subtle and more important. In modern conflict, systems are only as strong as the assumptions behind them. When those assumptions harden into doctrine, they become targets. Krytvev 6 did not fall because its defenses were weak. It fell because they were predictable. The defenders prepared perfectly for the wrong moment, while the attackers waited patiently for the right one. As militaries around the world study this event, one question will linger. If the most advanced weapons can be erased before they are ever used, what does deterrence look like next? Now, I want to hear from you. Did this outcome surprise you, or did it confirm what you already suspected about the direction of modern warfare? Share your thoughts in the comments.